My stepdad threw me out on my 18th birthday. Then I discovered I owned the house, and their lies began to unravel. The rain was coming down in sheets, the kind of Portland downpour that soaks you to the bone and makes the city feel like it's drowning in its own moodiness. It was October 15th, my 18th birthday, and I was trudging home from a long day, classes at Portland Community College, a shift at the design studio, and no real plans to celebrate. I'm Caleb Whitaker, 19 now, a freelance graphic designer trying to make something of myself in a world that's already kicked me around more than I deserve. That night, I thought I'd crash in my childhood bedroom, maybe order a pizza and call it a day. Instead, I walked into a nightmare that flipped my life upside down. My stepfather, Derek, was waiting in the driveway, my old duffel bag, the one Dad and I used for camping trips, slung over his shoulder, a smirk on his face that made my stomach twist. Before I could open my mouth, he tossed it onto the wet pavement and said, "You're 18, Caleb. Time to go. This ain't your home anymore." In that moment, I learned the truth. My own mother and her Canardist husband had been plotting to steal the house I didn't even know I owned, along with the $300,000 0-cents inheritance tied to it. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie, and the fight to take back what was mine was just beginning. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland's Hawthorne district, in a 3-bedroom house with a garage my dad had turned into an art studio before he died. It wasn't fancy, white siding, a small backyard with a sagging fence, a porch where I used to sketch with Dad, but it was home. My dad was an architect, the kind of guy who could see beauty in a blueprint and make you believe in it too. He'd spend hours with me, teaching me how to draw, showing me how lines could tell stories. When I was 9, he died in a car accident. A drunk driver on I-5, no warning, no chance to say goodbye. One day we were sketching plans for a treehouse, the next Mom was telling me he was gone. I didn't cry at the funeral, I just sat there, clutching his old sketchbook, feeling like the world had pulled the ground out from under me. After Dad, it was just me and Mom, Laura. She worked as a marketing coordinator for a local ad agency, pulling in about $60,000, 0 cents a year. Dad's life insurance and benefits kept us afloat, $150,000, 0 cents payout, plus a small pension that covered the bills. Mom wasn't the warmest, even before Dad died. She was always about appearances, perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect Instagram posts of our happy family. After Dad, she got colder. Like raising me was a chore she hadn't signed up for. I learned to cook my own meals, do my own laundry, and keep my head down. Then Derek came along when I was 12, a self-proclaimed real estate investor who reeked of cheap cologne and cheaper lies. He drove a leased Audi A4 he could barely afford, wore knockoff designer clothes, and talked big about deals that never materialized. Mom met him at some networking event, and within 6 months they were married. I wasn't invited to the wedding, just told to pack my stuff, because Derek and his daughter Chloe were moving in. Chloe was 16, 2 years older than me, and a walking nightmare. She'd steal my art supplies, hack into my design software to borrow my projects, and leave my room trashed, blaming me when Mom or Derek noticed. Once she downloaded a virus onto my laptop, crashing a client project, and laughed when I got grounded for being careless. Mom and Derek always took her side. "Caleb, stop exaggerating," Mom would say, scrolling through her phone. "Share with your sister," Derek would add, winking at Chloe like they were in on some joke. Behind their backs, Chloe's smirk said it all. She knew she could do whatever she wanted, and I'd pay the price. Derek was worse in his own way. He'd sleep until noon, claiming to work from home, but his days were spent watching sports, making sketchy calls about investment opportunities, and buying gadgets. He'd return when the credit card bills came. He'd show off a $2,000 0 cents TV one week, then it'd be gone, replaced by a sob story about a bad deal. I hated him, but I hated how Mom changed around him more. She became his cheerleader, hanging on his every word, oblivious to the red flags. By 14, I knew no one in that house was looking out for me. I threw myself into school, acing art and design classes, and landed a job at a local design studio, Torque Creative, when I turned 15. The owner, Maria Torres, was a badass, tough, talented, and the first person since Dad who saw something in me. She started me at $15 0 cents an hour, doing basic photo edits and mock-ups, and taught me how to use Adobe Suite like a pro. I saved every penny I could, stashing $10,000 0 cents in a lockbox hidden under my bedroom floorboards, where Chloe's sticky fingers couldn't reach. I paid for my own phone, clothes, and even kicked in $400 0 cents a month for rent after Derek insisted it'd teach me responsibility. That was $4,800 0 cents I'd handed over by 18, money I earned while they lived off Dad's benefits and whatever scams Derek was running. My friends, Evan, Riley, and Sam, kept me sane. We were the artsy weirdos, bonding over indie music, late-night D&D campaigns, and building our own portfolios. Evan's parents were musicians, laid back and supportive. Riley lived with his single dad, a mechanic who let us use his garage for art projects. Sam's mom was strict but fair, a librarian who'd sneak us rare art books. They knew my home life sucked, but I didn't dwell on it. Complaining felt weak, and I wasn't about to be the guy who whined. October 15th started like any other day. I had a morning class on typography, a shift at Torque, and vague plans for pizza with the guys that weekend, no big birthday bash. I wasn't that guy. Maria slipped me a cupcake at work, and Mrs. Chen, our 68-year-old neighbor who'd known me since I was a toddler, left a card in the mailbox with a $20 0 cents bill and a note. Happy 18th, Caleb. Your dad would be proud. It was the kind of small gesture that hit harder than it should have. I got off the bus around 6:45 p.m., the rain soaking my hoodie, expecting to crash in my room. Instead, I saw Derek in the driveway, my duffel bag in his hand, that smug grin plastered on his face. Chloe was at her window, phone out, filming like this was her personal reality show. "Losers out!" she yelled. "TikTok's gonna eat this up." "What the hell, Derek?" I said, my voice shaking not from fear but from the surrealness of it all. He dropped the bag, mud splashing onto it. "You're 18, kid. Time to grow up. This ain't your house anymore." I stood there, rain dripping down my face, my brain struggling to process. "This is my home," I said, the words sounding pathetic even to me. Derek laughed, a mean, guttural sound. "Your mom and I decided you're on your own. Ask her if you don't believe me." I called Mom, my hands trembling so bad I could barely hold the phone. She picked up after 4 rings, her voice clipped, like I was interrupting her. "Mom, Derek just kicked me out. My stuff's on the ground. What's going on?" There was a pause, then she said, "Caleb, we talked about this. You're an adult now. You need to be a man." My heart stopped. "You talked about this? It's my birthday, Mom. You're throwing me out with no warning?" She sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "We've carried you long enough. Happy birthday, Caleb. Consider this your push to independence." She hung up, and I stood there, rain pooling in my shoes, the world tilting. Derek gave me 15 minutes to grab what I could. Inside, the house felt foreign, like I was trespassing. Chloe lounged on the couch, still filming, smirking. "Gonna cry, Caleb?" she taunted, dangling Dad's vintage Omega watch, the one he wore every day, his father's gift to him. "Looking for this?" Derek pawned it months ago for a deal. Oops. My chest tightened, rage and grief colliding. I lunged for it, not to hurt her, just to grab the last piece of Dad I had left. But she dodged, laughing. "God, you're pathetic." I didn't have time to process. I grabbed my sketchbooks, external drive with my portfolio, and pried up the floorboard for my lockbox. $10,000, 0 cents, still there. No watch, no photos of Dad, just clothes and toiletries Derek had thrown in the bag. Mrs. Chen was on her porch, watching, her face creased with worry. "Caleb, what's happening?" she called. I couldn't answer, just shook my head and kept walking, no idea where to go. My phone buzzed. Chloe's TikTok post was already up, captioned, "Deadbeat brother gets what he deserves." I texted Evan, "Kicked out. Can I crash at your place?" He replied instantly, "Get over here, we got you." His parents' apartment was tiny, a 1-bedroom in Selwood, but they made up the couch with fresh sheets and handed me a spare toothbrush. I lay there that night staring at the ceiling, replaying Mom's voice, Derek's smirk, Chloe's laugh. Had they planned this? How long had they been waiting to cut me out? The next morning, I dragged myself to class, still in yesterday's clothes, trying to act normal. At lunch, I spilled everything to Evan, Riley, and Sam. "They can't just do that," Riley said, slamming his fist on the table. Sam, always the realist, shrugged. "Legally, they can. You're 18, no obligation to house you." Evan glared at him. "Not helping, dude." I barely ate, my mind stuck on Derek's words. This ain't your house anymore. Was it ever mine? Or had they been playing a long game? At the studio, Maria took one look at me and knew something was wrong. "Talk, Caleb," she said, sliding me a coffee. I gave her the short version. Kicked out, bag on the ground, Mom's cold voice. Her jaw tightened. "That's bullshit. You can sleep in the storage room if you need to. There's a cot. Not comfy, but it's yours." I thanked her, but my mind went to Aunt Rachel, Dad's sister in Salem. We weren't close. She worked crazy hours as a construction project manager, and I hadn't seen her in a year. But she'd always sent birthday cards with $50, 0 cents, and called to check in. Derek hated her, always made excuses to keep her away. I wondered why now. I stepped outside to call her, sitting on a bench under a dripping awning. She picked up on the second ring. "Caleb, you okay?" Her voice was warm, worried. I tried to keep it together, but 10 seconds in, I broke. "They kicked me out, Aunt Rachel, on my birthday. Derek threw my stuff out, and Mom said it's fine. I don't know what to do." Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Text me where you are. I'm coming now." An hour later, her beat-up Jeep pulled up, and she hugged me so tight I almost forgot how to breathe. She looked at my duffel bag, my soaked hoodie, and her face hardened. "Get in. We're fixing this." In the car, she called Mom on speaker. "Laura, it's Rachel. Caleb's with me. You and that sleazeball kicked him out on his birthday? Explain." Mom's voice was defensive, sharp. "This is family business, Rachel. He's 18. He needs to grow up." Rachel laughed, cold and cutting. "Family business? You threw my brother's son onto the street. You're going to regret this, Laura. You have no idea what's coming," Mom snapped. "Is that a threat?" Rachel's voice was steel. "It's a promise. That house isn't what you think it is." She hung up, and I stared at her, confused. "What do you mean, the house?" At her Salem home, a cozy ranch style with her husband Mark and their daughter Lily, 13, she sat me down with a Coke and a plate of homemade tacos. "Caleb," she said, her eyes serious, "your grandfather left that house to you in his will when you were 10. It was supposed to transfer to you at 18. I nearly choked. "What?" "Mom said it's hers." Rachel shook her head, pulling out a folder with yellowed papers. "Your grandpa bought it in the 90s for $150,000. 0 cents, free and clear. When he got sick, he left cash to me and your dad, but the house went to you, his only grandchild. Laura was the trustee until you turned 18. She never told you, did she?" I shook my head, my mind reeling. The house I'd grown up in, the one I'd been kicked out of, was mine? And they'd kept it from me? Rachel's voice softened. "I kept a copy of the will because I never trusted Laura after she married Derek so fast. Your dad would have killed me if I let anything happen to you." I read the will, my hands shaking. There it was. "To my grandson, Caleb James Whitaker, I leave my primary residence at 2714 S.E. Hawthorne, Burleigh. My home. My birthright. And they'd thrown me out like trash. What do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Rachel's eyes glinted. "We fight. I know a lawyer, Vanessa, who eats cases like this for breakfast." "They're not getting away with this." That night in Rachel's guest room, I lay awake, the weight of the day crashing down. I'd lost my home, my dad's watch, my sense of family. But Rachel's words lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about a house. It was about everything they'd stolen, everything they thought I was too weak to fight for. As I drifted off, I heard footsteps outside, a shadow passing the window. My heart raced. Was it paranoia or was someone watching? Derek's smirk flashed in my mind, and I knew this was far from over. The Portland rain hadn't let up, hammering the roof of Aunt Rachel's guest room like it was trying to drown out the chaos in my head. It had been 4 days since my stepfather, Derek, threw my duffel bag onto the wet pavement of our Hawthorne driveway, sneering that I was no longer welcome in my own home. 4 days since my mom, Laura, confirmed she'd agreed to kick me out on my 18th birthday, claiming I needed to be a man. 4 days since Aunt Rachel dropped the bomb that the house I'd been evicted from, along with a $300,000 0-cents inheritance, was legally mine, a secret buried in my grandfather's will. I'm Caleb Whitaker, 19, a freelance graphic designer scraping by at Portland Community College, and I was done being the victim. But as I lay awake, the memory of that alley confrontation, 2 thugs cornering me, their hissed warning to forget the house, clung like damp fog. Someone was watching me, and the fight to reclaim my life was about to get uglier than I ever imagined. Rachel's house in Salem was a haven, a 3-bedroom ranch with creaky floors and a warmth my old home hadn't had in years. Her husband Mark, a quiet carpenter with a dry sense of humor, and their daughter Lily, 13, treated me like I'd always belonged. Over breakfast, pancakes Lily proudly flipped herself. Rachel laid out the plan. "I called Vanessa, my lawyer friend in Portland," she said, sliding me a coffee. "She's a shark with real estate cases. She's ready to meet us tomorrow to get that house back." I nodded, still processing the will she'd shown me last night. My grandfather's words were clear. The house at 2714 S.E. Hawthorne Bull was mine, left to me when I was 10, with Laura as trustee until I turned 18. Laura never breathed a word about it, and now she and Derek were living large off my inheritance, pocketing $1,200 0-cents a month from a basement apartment rental I didn't even know was mine. "What if they fight dirty?" I asked, my voice low. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "They already are, Caleb. But we're smarter." My phone buzzed, a new text from an unknown number. "Drop it, kid. You don't know what you're messing with." My stomach lurched. I showed Rachel, and her jaw tightened. That's Derek's style. Cowardly threats from burner phones. "Save it. Vanessa will eat this up." I screenshot it, my hands shaking, the memory of those thugs in the alley flashing back. Were they Derek's hired muscle? Or was something bigger at play? I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about the house anymore. That afternoon, I headed back to Portland for a shift at Torque Creative, the design studio where I worked. Maria, my boss, greeted me with a hug and a worried look. "You holding up, Caleb?" she asked. I gave her the short version of eviction, the will, Derek's threats. Her face darkened. "That's low even for a sleaze like him. You need anything, you tell me." I thanked her, but as I sat at my desk, tweaking a logo for a $20,000 0-cents client project, my phone lit up with notifications. Chloe, my stepsister, had posted a viral Instagram thread. "My deadbeat brother's trying to steal our family's home. Don't let his sob story fool you." She'd faked texts, making it look like I'd demanded the house out of greed. Comments poured in. "What a jerk. Kick him to the curb." And my heart sank. Clients started email questioning my reliability. One, a big-shot retailer tied to Derek's investments, threatened to pull their contract unless I backed off. I felt the walls closing in. My freelance career, the one thing I'd built on my own, was crumbling because of Chloe's lies. I left the studio early, needing air, and biked to campus for a night class. As I locked my bike, I noticed a folded note taped to the handlebars. A knife, pinning it to the frame. "Drop the case, or you're done." My pulse spiked. I scanned the parking lot, half expecting those thugs to step out of the shadows, but it was just students rushing through the rain. I tucked the note into my pocket, evidence for Vanessa, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Derek wasn't just a con artist. He had connections, and they were coming for me. The next morning, Rachel and I met Vanessa at her office, a sleek loft in the Pearl District with floor-to-ceiling windows and stacks of legal books. Vanessa was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with a no-nonsense vibe that made you feel she could dismantle anyone in a courtroom. I laid out everything: Derek's eviction, Chloe's taunts, Mom's cold betrayal, the alley attack, the threatening note. Rachel handed over the will, and I showed Vanessa the text from Derek about the basement apartment. "Jordan's rent due tomorrow, $1,200, 0 cents cash, late again. Tell him pay up or he's out." Vanessa's eyes lit up. "This is gold. They've been pocketing $43,200, 0 cents over 3 years, money that belongs to you. And the eviction? Illegal. You were still a minor at 6:45 p.m. on October 15th, born at 9:12 p.m. They're screwed. She leaned forward, tapping her pen. There's more. I ran a title search. Derek and Laura took a $75,000 0 cents home equity loan on your house 6 months after their marriage, plus a $30,000 0 cents second mortgage days after they kicked you out. That's fraud. They had no right to borrow against your property. My jaw dropped. They'd been milking my house like it was their personal ATM, and I'd had no clue. What do we do? I asked. Vanessa grinned, a predator sizing up prey. We file an emergency petition to lock down the house and freeze their access. Then we build a case for restitution and fraud. You got witnesses? I nodded. Mrs. Chen, our neighbor, saw it all, took photos, and Jordan, the tenant, can confirm the rent. We tracked down Jordan, a 24-year-old grad student renting the basement. We met at a coffee shop near campus, his face paling as I explained the situation. I had no idea the house was yours, he said, handing over rental contracts and Venmo receipts. $1,200 0 cents a month, cash, only for the last year. Derek said it was his place. He acted like he was doing me a favor. He promised to testify, horrified that he'd been part of their scam. Mrs. Chen was next, her voice trembling as she gave Vanessa a time-stamped photo of Derek tossing my bag, me standing in the rain, still legally 17. I called Laura, Mrs. Chen said, but she never answered. I've been so worried for you, Caleb. Her kindness hit hard. A reminder that not everyone had turned their back on me. Back at Rachel's, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Derek. You'll regret this, kid. You think you're smart? You're playing with fire. I played it for Rachel, who clenched her fists. He's scared, she said. He knows he's losing. But then came the next blow. A fire broke out at my college art studio, destroying my portfolio. Years of work gone in flames. The fire marshal called it arson, and whispers pointed to Derek's shady associates. I stood outside the charred building, my chest tight, wondering how far he'd go to shut me up. Rachel pulled me into a hug. They're desperate, Caleb. That means we're winning. The pressure kept mounting. My professor, Dr. Ellis, pulled me aside after class. Caleb, I'm hearing about your personal drama. You're up for a scholarship, but this could jeopardize it. Sort it out, or you're risking your future. I wanted to scream. None of this was my fault. But I nodded, swallowing my anger. Then Chloe upped her game, posting a GoFundMe, claiming I was making her family homeless, raising $300 0 cents from strangers with fake sob stories and doctored texts. My inbox filled with hate mail, and another client dropped me, citing reputation concerns. I felt like I was drowning, my career and dreams slipping away because of their lies. One night, leaving the studio late, I hopped on my bike only to realize the brakes were cut. I swerved into a ditch on a busy Portland street, narrowly avoiding a truck, my heart pounding as cars honked. Police found tool marks on the cables, deliberate sabotage. Maria's security footage showed a hooded figure near my bike, but the face was obscured. This is getting dangerous, Maria said, her voice tight. You need to be careful, Caleb. I nodded. But fear was a constant now, a shadow I couldn't shake. Rachel suggested a break, so I joined Evan, Riley, and Sam at a dive bar in Belmont. For a few hours, we laughed over beers, swapping stories about bad clients and epic D&D campaigns. Sam, a photography nerd, geeked out over my film camera sketches, sparking a debate about analog versus digital. It was the first time I'd smiled in days, their support a lifeline. Evan nudged me, grinning. Sam's got a crush, dude. Don't mess it up. I laughed it off. But Sam's easy smile stayed with me, a spark of something real amid the chaos. That night, though, another anonymous call came. Back off, or next time you won't walk away. I froze, the bar's noise fading. Was Derek this desperate, or was someone else pulling the strings? The first court hearing loomed, set for November 10. Vanessa prepared me for battle, filing a petition to secure my ownership and block Derek and Laura from selling the house. Evan's dad, a paralegal, helped gather statements from Jordan and Mrs. Chen, solidifying our case. Vanessa uncovered more. Derek had funneled the $75,000 0 cents loan and $43,200 0 cents in rent into a failed crypto scheme and lavish Vegas trips, even buying a $10,000 0 cents watch he flaunted online. The $30,000 0 cent second mortgage, taken days after my eviction, went to offshore gambling sites. This is fraud on steroids, Vanessa said, almost gleeful. They're going down. Laura's pleas grew frantic, voicemails begging me to think of the family, claiming Derek had pressured her. Derek's threats turned uglier. You're dead if you keep this up. Chloe's Instagram post painted me as a monster, but cracks were showing. Friends from high school messaged me, sharing stories of Derek's scams, Laura's lies about living the dream on my money. Then Laura's brother Tom approached me, outside class, offering $15,000, 0 cents, to drop the case. Derek's got debts, Caleb. Bad people, you don't want to get involved. His words chilled me. Was this why the threats kept coming? The hearing was electric. Judge Eleanor Hayes, a stern woman with a reputation for fairness, presided. Vanessa presented the will, Mrs. Chen's photo, Jordan's contracts, and Derek's texts. The defendants illegally evicted a minor from his own property, misappropriated $43,200 0 cents in rent, and committed fraud with a $75,000 0 cents loan and a $30,000 0 cents mortgage, she said. Laura cried. Derek sat stone-faced. Their lawyers stammered, claiming the rent went to my upkeep, but Vanessa countered with receipts showing I'd paid $4,800 0 cents in rent myself. Judge Hayes issued a temporary order. No more rent collection, no property changes, and full financial disclosure within 30 days. Outside, Laura grabbed my arm, sobbing. Caleb, please, we're family. I pulled away. You stole my home, my dad's watch, my future. You're not my family anymore. That night, leaving Torque, I was ambushed. A masked figure tackled me, pinning me against the wall, hissing, "Drop the case." Maria's security camera caught him fleeing, and I escaped with bruises, but my fear skyrocketed. Rachel, Mark, and Lily rallied around me, their home a fortress. Over dinner, Lily gave me a hand-drawn card. You're our family now. I choked up, the warmth overwhelming after years of Laura's coldness. The final hearing came on January 20. Vanessa dropped a bomb. Derek owed $50,000. 0 cents in gambling debts, funded by my house's equity. The judge awarded me full title, voided all loans, and ordered $68,200 0 cents in restitution for stolen rent, plus $30,000 0 cents for the illegal eviction. Derek was arrested for fraud. Laura lost her job when her firm learned of her role. Chloe's GoFundMe was shut down, her lies exposed. I moved back into my house, renting the basement to Jordan for $800 0 cents a month, using the damages to fix the sagging fence and repaint Dad's studio. Rachel's family, Evan, Riley, Sam, and Maria, became my new foundation. I started therapy, landed a $25,000 0 cents design contract, and set up a $2,000 0 cents art scholarship in Dad's name. Laura and Chloe ended up in a rundown apartment, their social media facades shattered. Derek faced jail time, his scams catching up. Standing in my backyard, sketching again, I felt free. The threats, the fire, the ambush, they'd tried to break me, but I'd won. Sam texted, "Proud of you. Drink soon?" I smiled, a new chapter beginning. But questions lingered. Who sent those thugs? What else did Derek hide? Did Laura know about the will all along? Will Chloe's lies come back? Is there a bigger network behind this?